Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a look at anonymous communication and the work of DARPA, specifically RACE, the Resilient Anonymous Communication for Everyone program.
Right.
We'll be checking out some stuff straight from DARPA's website,
Okay.
as well as this really interesting YouTube video called The Dark Side of DARPA by the Y-Files.
Sounds interesting.
So what we want to do today is kind of get a handle on what RACE can do, explore its potential, and then think about how this all fits into DARPA's history and what they do.
Yeah.
So, DARPA has a reputation for coming up with some pretty amazing tech,
That's for sure.
but they're not without controversy, right?
Right.
So let's start with the basics of RACE, what it's all about.
Okay.
Basically, it's all about sending a message that's super secure and private.
Okay.
Even if someone tries to intercept it, they can't read it or figure out who sent it. Kind of like a super secret digital whisper.
I like that.
So the idea is to make online communication more resilient so, it can withstand attacks and stuff.
Right.
And anonymous, so people can share their thoughts without fear of being tracked or censored.
Interesting.
Think about it. With RACE, you could share sensitive info, maybe whistleblow on something,
Oh, wow.
without worrying about your identity being revealed.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah. It could totally change how we think about free speech online.
Definitely.
What's really cool is that DARPA actually released some of the code for RACE on GitHub.
Oh, wow. Really?
So anyone who's interested can take a look and see how it works.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it sparked a lot of interest with researchers and anyone who's into online privacy.
So where can people find this code?
We'll definitely share the link later in the show.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so before we get, too deep into the technical stuff,
Yeah.
let's take a step back and think about DARPA itself.
Okay.
Because they're the ones behind RACE and so many other things. And that's where this YouTube video, The Dark Side of DARPA, comes in. They look at some of the ethical questions around DARPA's work, which can get kind of complicated.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you got to understand the historical context of DARPA.
Right.
Picture the Cold War, the U.S. and the Soviets, locked in this intense tech race.
Battling it out.
Exactly. And from that tension, DARPA was born. Their mission was basically to develop cutting-edge tech for the military, right?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, a lot of their inventions ended up having a huge impact on civilian life, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's so many examples of that.
It's pretty amazing how something designed for the military can end up shaping how we live every day.
Definitely. It's like this unintended consequence that actually benefits everybody.
Exactly.
Like the internet.
Oh, yeah.
It started as ARPANET, a DARPA project to connect researchers.
Right.
And now look at it.
It's crazy to think we could live without it now.
Seriously.
And it doesn't stop there. I mean, GPS, that little thing that helps us get around, also came from DARPA research.
No, that's right.
Then you've got microprocessors, those tiny chips that are literally everywhere.
Yeah, and our phones, computers, cars, everything.
Exactly, all with roots back to DARPA's work.
It's wild when you really start to think about how much they've influenced technology today.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
And they were already working on self-driving cars back in the 80s. Can you believe that?
What? No way.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what crazy stuff they're cooking up now that we'll be using in the future.
Right, it's like they're living in the future and just giving us glimpses of it.
Exactly. Some people say they're like 20 years ahead of what we see in the regular world.
Oh, wow. So what's coming next?
Who knows? That's the exciting part. But with all these incredible advancements, there's some big ethical questions too.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Right. DARPA has contributed to a ton of innovations that benefit everyone, for sure.
Yeah.
But some of their projects, let's be honest, raise some concerns.
Yeah, there are definitely some things that make you think twice.
Exactly. Like the potential for misuse is a big one.
For sure.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that not all of DARPA's work has been perfect.
Right.
There's been some controversy along the way.
Yeah. Like their work on self-guided bullets, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, and the wall-seeing technology, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's real.
It is, and it raises some serious questions about how warfare might change.
For sure, could it lead to even more violence? It's a scary thought.
Definitely something to think about.
And then there are the projects focused on human augmentation.
Oh, yeah, like those warrior web exoskeletons.
Right, and the Talos suit, it's like they're trying to create a real-life Iron Man.
Yeah, blurring the lines between humans and machines.
Makes you wonder about the ethics of all that.
Absolutely. Like, how far is too far when it comes to enhancing soldiers' abilities?
These are tough questions with no easy answers.
It's not black and white, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely not. But I think it's crucial to have these discussions about the impact of these technologies.
I agree. The more we talk about it, the better prepared we'll be to deal with whatever comes next.
And speaking of DARPA's focus on the future, we can't forget about their work with artificial intelligence, or AI.
Oh, right. AI. They've been involved in that for a long time now.
Yeah, their research in AI goes way back to the 60s.
Wow, that's way before most people even knew what a computer was.
Right, they were developing speech recognition systems back then.
It's amazing how early they were on that.
Yeah, they really saw the potential of AI early on, and that research has had a huge impact.
Definitely. It paved the way for all those sophisticated AI systems we use today.
Like self-driving cars, facial recognition, all that stuff.
It really makes you think about the connection between government-funded research and the tech that ends up in our hands.
Yeah, it's not always a straight line from the lab to our pockets, is it?
Nope, there are a lot of twists and turns along the way.
One example that comes to mind is DARPA's involvement in the Massive Digital Data Systems Program, or MDDS.
Oh yeah, that's the one that supposedly had a hand in the early days of Google, right?
That's right. It's a complex story, but it highlights how agencies like DARPA and private companies are all intertwined.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder about the influence of government funding on what gets researched and how those technologies might be used in ways that weren't originally intended.
Absolutely. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. The more you look, the more you see these intricate connections.
Exactly. And as we move forward in this tech-driven world, it's crucial to be aware of those connections and consider the potential consequences, both good and bad.
I agree. We have to be mindful of who's funding the research, what their goals are, and what safeguards are in place. It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's important. The more we understand, the better equipped we are to navigate this complex landscape. And, this brings us back to RACE.
Oh, yeah.
How does this anonymous communication program, fit into the bigger picture of DARPA?
Right.
It's all about groundbreaking tech, but
Yeah,
there are those questions about the benefits and risks.
exactly. And we talked about the potential for misuse with some of DARPA's other projects.
Right.
So how does race kind of navigate that line between being innovative but also ethical?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Hmm.
And it's one that's worth exploring.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand,
Uh-huh.
race could have a really positive impact.
Okay.
Think about activists or journalists being able to communicate
Right.
securely and anonymously without fear of censorship or anything like that.
That's a really powerful idea, giving a voice to people who might otherwise be silenced,
Absolutely.
especially in parts of the world where free speech is restricted.
Exactly.
Or where people face threats just for speaking out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like giving them a shield.
a way to protect themselves.
Exactly.
But as with any powerful tool, there's always that flip side. You got to consider the other side of the coin.
For sure.
That same technology that could be used for good
Yeah.
could be used for things that are not so good.
Okay.
Things that are less noble.
So it's like, think about organized crime,
Right, right.
or even state-sponsored actors
Uh,
using RACE to coordinate illegal activities,
Yeah.
spread misinformation, that kind of thing.
So it's that classic dilemma.
Mhm.
A tool created with good intentions, but it can also be used for harm.
Right, right.
So how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
Is it even possible to control how a technology like RACE is used once it's out in the world?
I mean, those are the tough questions. There's no easy answer.
Right.
But I think the first step is awareness.
Okay.
The more we understand about these technologies,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to have those informed discussions
Right.
about their use, their regulation, how they impact society.
It all comes back to knowledge, doesn't it?
It really does.
The more we know.
Yeah. The more power we have to participate in these conversations
Yeah.
and shape how these technologies are used in our world.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why projects like the Y-Files,
Oh, yeah, the YouTube channel.
the YouTube channel, yeah,
Yeah.
that made the video we're talking about.
Uh-huh.
Those are so important.
Mhm.
They're shining a light on DARPA's work,
Right.
both the good and the bad,
Yeah.
encouraging us to think critically about the implications.
It's not just about the tech itself, but also about who's developing it.
Right.
What their goals are, what safeguards are in place
You got it.
to prevent misuse, all of that.
You've hit on a crucial point,
Hmm.
and it leads us to another interesting aspect of DARPA.
Okay.
Its funding structure
Uh-huh.
and the close ties it has with private companies,
Mm.
particularly in the tech and defense industries.
Right, right.
The YouTube video touches on this when it talks about the Massive Digital Data Systems program.
Oh, yeah, MDDS.
MDDS, right?
The one that supposedly funded the early development of Google.
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy when you think about it.
It is.
It makes you think about how much influence the government has on research priorities and how technology is developed for one purpose can end up being used in totally different ways.
Yeah, it's a complex story. There's debate about how involved DARPA really was,
Right.
but it definitely raises important questions
Yeah.
about the relationship between the government, private companies,
Yeah.
and the development of technologies with huge implications.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It is. It really is.
The more you look,
Uh-huh.
the more you see these connections and relationships
The web of connections.
that influence how technology is developed and used.
Yeah, and as we try to navigate this increasingly complex tech landscape,
Right.
it's super important to be aware of these connections
Yeah.
and to think about the potential consequences.
Both good and bad.
Both good and bad, exactly.
Okay, so speaking of digging deeper, we promised to share that GitHub link for DARPA's RACE program.
Right.
For those who want to get into the technical details,
Yeah.
you can find it at
Let me know when you're ready.
https.github.com/tst-race-quickstart.
Okay, I'm going to check that out later.
Yeah, you should.
I encourage everyone listening to check it out, too. It's a fascinating look at the tech behind race
Yeah.
and how DARPA is tackling these challenges of secure and anonymous communication.
It's pretty cool.
And while you're at it, why not do some of your own research into DARPA and their projects?
Oh, yeah, go down the rabbit hole.
You may be surprised by what you find.
For sure, knowledge is power, right?
It is.
And these days, understanding the forces behind technology is more important than ever.
Absolutely. But before we move on,
Okay.
I want to leave you with one last thought.
All right.
We've talked a lot about the ethical considerations of DARPA's work. But what about the responsibility of the people who actually use the technologies they create?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus on the big picture, the organizations,
Right.
but ultimately it's individuals making choices about how these technologies are used.
Precisely. Whether it's a soldier using a DARPA-developed weapon or a programmer writing code for an algorithm that can be used for surveillance.
Right.
Individuals have a responsibility
Yeah.
to think critically about what they're doing.
About the potential consequences.
The potential consequences, yeah.
It's like that Spider-Man quote.
Oh, yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
We can't just blindly accept technological advancements
Right.
without thinking about how they'll impact society.
Absolutely.
It's not always easy to do that, though.
No, it's not.
Sometimes it's hard to know what's right and wrong,
Yeah, the lines can get blurry.
beneficial and harmful, all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think if we have these open and honest conversations, question our assumptions, and challenge the status quo,
Yeah.
we can steer technology in a more thoughtful and ethical direction.
It's a collaborative effort. We all play a part in shaping the future of technology.
Whether we realize it or not.
Whether we realize it or not, that's right.
So we've explored the RACE program, delved into DARPA's history,
Yeah.
discussed the responsibilities that come with these advancements.
Right.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
What does the rise of tech, like RACE, technologies that promise anonymity and privacy, what does that mean for us as individuals?
Yeah, it really makes you think
It does.
about how these technologies that promise anonymity and privacy, how they change how we connect online.
Right, right.
What are your thoughts on how this impacts our sense of, identity and responsibility in this digital age?
It's a fascinating question. When we can act without revealing who we really are,
Right.
it does make you wonder about accountability.
Does anonymity, does it make us
Yeah.
more likely to do things we wouldn't do
Right.
if we knew we could be identified?
It's almost like that ring of Gyges thing.
Oh, yeah. The invisible ring.
Exactly. If you had that ring, would you still be a good person?
Right. Would you still do the right thing?
It's a classic thought experiment for a reason.
It is.
And anonymity online is kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can be empowering, no doubt.
For sure.
It can protect whistleblowers,
Uh-huh.
allow people to express themselves freely
Right.
without fear of backlash.
Exactly.
But it also has that potential for misuse.
Yeah. You got to think about that, too.
People might feel emboldened to do things they wouldn't normally do.
Right. Because they think they can get away with it.
Exactly.
It's a tough balance between individual freedom
Right.
and the need for some accountability online.
Yeah, if you can't see who's behind the actions,
Uh-huh.
how do you build trust? How do you make sure people are responsible for what they say and do?
It's a big challenge.
It is, and it's something we're dealing with more and more.
Definitely, as technology keeps evolving.
You see it in the debates about online harassment, the spread of misinformation,
Yeah, all that stuff.
the role of social media in shaping public opinion.
Right. It's like we're in uncharted territory.
It really is.
The rules of the real world
Mm-hmm.
don't always apply online.
Especially when you throw anonymity into the mix.
Yeah, it gets complicated.
What do we do?
Well, I think it comes down to critical thinking.
Okay.
We need to be careful about what we believe online. Question what we see and read.
Be skeptical.
Be skeptical, exactly.
Recognize that not everything is true or trustworthy.
Exactly.
It's like we need a whole new set of skills for the digital age.
I think so.
Digital literacy, to navigate all this complexity.
Right.
Learn how to separate the good info from the bad.
That's crucial.
And that's where conversations like this come in. Absolutely. Exploring these issues, considering different viewpoints, asking those tough questions.
Right.
That's how we start to understand how to navigate this digital world.
It's a journey, that's for sure.
It is, and we're all on it together.
We are.
And as we create these new technologies,
Like racy.
yeah, technologies that offer anonymity and privacy, we need to remember both the good and the bad that come with them.
Absolutely. Technology is powerful. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
It's up to us as individuals and as a society
Yep.
to decide how we use that power.
And how we shape the future of our digital world.
Feel free to comment your thoughts or where you would like the conversation to go in a future cast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.